Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this lovely evening. Tonight, it's going to be a little bit of a continuation of the last show, which was the 14th Amendment. But the nice thing about breaking it down the way I have been, or at least have been like I've been doing it for a long time. But in the last episode, we just focused on the 14th Amendment. So if you have not watched that, if you're joining me from Rumble or YouTube, wherever you guys are coming in from, go back and watch that one. That way I don't have to cover all of that information again, and we can just kind of discuss the information tonight. Tonight's show is called Securities Farming, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody else use the term. I'm not saying I created it. I actually think that the oligarchy created it because they consider you farmland in one aspect, a maritime vessel in another aspect, a widely held fixed investment trust company in another aspect, or in another sense, and you are all of these things simultaneously for whatever purpose they may be needing to classify you as such. But farmland, yes, they actually, it was the Federal Farm Loan Act that gave birth to farm loan districts. I've covered that before in another episode. Maybe we'll go over it tonight. But farmland is actually a taxable district, is a political district leased for taxation purposes. That's actual legal definition of farm. And what I mean by securities farming, we're going to get into. The courts generally are securities farms, and you are essentially the seed or the commodity, the livestock, if you will, that they use to produce the product. But before we get into all that, let me welcome my father, Sovereign Soul, Unchained Mind. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Doing great. Getting ready to. Tomorrow's a very special day, A very, very special day. Tomorrow is going to be Transgender Visibility Day.
Oh, yay! That's
Yep.
good. That's that's a good. That's good. Yeah, because I thought, yeah, that's
Oh, yeah, and it's going to be Easter too for those of you that celebrate
yeah,
Easter.
that's what I was going to say. I thought it was going to be Easter, but that takes a back seat, of course, to the Transformer agenda. So let's say hi to a few people that have gotten here so far. We have Make Stupid People Famous, of course. How you doing tonight? Thanks for stopping in. We got Jehovah's Daughter Barbara. Obviously, we have Saddlebomb right here. We have Chicago Cubby Bear. Good to see you. Tiffany Vinci. Good to see you. Um,
Dawn.
Stacey Jones has stopped in. Good to see you. Mojo Shop.
Mojo Rising. Mr. Mojo Rising. I know that guy.
And then we have quite simply Don. Good to see you, Don. Two Sis on the Rumble side. Good to see you. Thank you guys for popping in tonight, man. Tonight's I'm gonna try not to share the screen as much so I can pay attention to the comments. More so just a discussion between me and my father here, and go over some of this stuff. But securities, a couple things I got to get out of the way so everybody can kind of understand everything in as currency. Like all of our currency is debt security. That's what it's considered. It's a debt security. It's an evidence of a debt. It's a secured debt, right? So dollar bill, we don't have dollar bills. That's the funny thing, is we say dollar bill, but we don't actually have dollar bills. We have Federal Reserve notes that represent dollars owed by the federal government at some future date. And you're the security, but what we actually, all we're doing is trading contracts. So if you pull a dollar bill out of your wallet, what does it have on it, Sav?
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm finding something that goes along with what you're saying. Ask it again.
So if you pull a dollar bill out of your wallet and you look at it, what does it have on it?
Well, it says that it's got the number 1 on it in all 4 corners. It says that it's a Federal Reserve note. It says
Right.
for all debts, public and private, legal tender. Has a couple signatures. We got
There
George
you go.
Washington.
That's what I was looking for. The couple of signatures. Those are the two parties to the contract. You have this who signs the dollar.
Let's take a look at that. I know the Secretary of the Treasury
Yeah.
is one of them. And you know, I learned about that was from an American Express commercial back in the 70s, where they had the actual Secretary of the Treasury endorsing Federal Express and showing her signature, where her, your signature is good anywhere. She says, I know my signature is good anywhere, but yours is too. um let's see. Holy shit. Is they printing these things smaller, Ryan, or is it just my eyes?
It may be your eyes. It was
Let's see.
already small.
Treasurer of the United States on the left side,
There you go.
and the Secretary of the Treasury on the right side.
No, in 1920, they passed an Independent Treasury Act. So those two parties of the Treasury actually represent the two separate parties of the contract. The Secretary of the Treasury represents the International Monetary Fund, who the loan, the mortgage of our property rights is through. And the treasurer himself represents the debtor, the United States. The reason I bring that up, what would you consider that you hold there in your hand? That's got signature. It represents an agreement. It represents debt owed. It's not tangibly valuable. It's not, you can't redeem it for anything right now as actual law specie. Yeah, you can go buy a candy with it or whatever you want, but you can't actually redeem it in lawful money. So what would that be in your hand?
An IOU.
It's an IOU. It's a contract.
Oh.
Now, that's the great trick of our money, is it's just debt contracts. That's all currency is a debt contract. Now, the word that they use, it's very vague and general, but it's used to describe all of the currency in circulation, all of the commercial paper. Let's use that term, is debt security. Okay, so you got Social Security. You've got the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, that makes the Securities and Exchange Commission one of the most powerful entities in the entire world. That's why I chose them as the thumbnail for the video tonight. The Securities and Exchange Commission, everything is a security. So that dollar bill is a debt security. Your utility bill is a debt security. Your traffic ticket is a debt security. All of these things represent an IOU. Now, there's one thing that, so when you get a loan, what do you have to get a loan?
Collateral.
Right. And there's only one collateral for all of the commercial paper in circulation. You know what that is?
Your servitude.
Us.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only actual tangible asset in the United States that backs the currency. The land has long since been gone. We don't have any gold. I don't care what anybody believes.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. No, hell no. The only tangible asset to back any commercial paper, because the government doesn't have credit of its own. Lifeless corporations don't have credit of their own, right?
Right.
We are the only tangible asset used to back any of the commercial paper. So that's why tonight I've named this video securities farming. Okay, so it's a tough subject for me to get out of my mind with the way that I see it and put it into like metaphorical or simple terms, right?
Right.
But I want to start with this video, and hopefully it plays
Well,
okay.
real quick, Ryan, I just want, because I went to this in this book I have by Pao Chang called Word Magic. I think you have this as well.
Yeah, you got it for me. It's a good book.
It says in here, phonetically, the word dead sounds similar to the word debt. Furthermore,
Yes.
the word debt has a strong connection to the word mortgage. Every time you get a mortgage, a debt or debt pledge, you commit sin. If you want evidence of this, go to the Merriam-Webster's and search for the definition of debt, and you should see the word sin as one of its definitions. The word sin is derived from the Old English word synn, meaning moral wrongdoing, injury, mischief, and enmity, feud, guilt, crime, offense against God, misdeed. Sin is also the name of an ancient moon god or moon goddess. The reason that you commit a sin, death, is you get a debt, a mortgage, is because you bring more debt or death into the economy, decreasing the purchasing power of the country's currency and causing death to the economy. As
Well,
debt or death spreads throughout the economy, it strengthens the power of the dark forces, allowing them to enslave mankind. But this goes up here to this thing about the legal tender. Let me see. If you want to understand the sin of debt a little deeper, you need to know how the words mortgage debt, dead, battery, all are related to the dollar, which is also known as legal tender. The term legal tender etymologically means currency, which by law must be accepted from a debtor.
yep. And that's exactly right. And we've covered that on this show before, where the mortgage kills you if you are the collateral. So if you're an indentured servant, you're considered dead in the eyes of the law. If you are what is mortgaged as, anything that's used as collateral in a mortgage, that's where the old Norman English term mortgage, dead pledge, comes from. Anything that's mortgaged. So if I'm getting a loan from you, right, and I put up my farmland as collateral, okay, to secure the loan, and you lend me the money, you now have the beneficial use of that farmland while the loan is outstanding. Okay. So anything that's grown on that land is yours while the loan is in play. What that means is that land is literally dead to me. It's dead. It doesn't exist. It's done. It's over with, because until I pay that loan off, right? Well, so in the concept of the farmland, it's not the farmland that's been put up for collateral. Well, it is, because we're the farmland. But it's us that have been used as collateral. So we are dead. Now, debt is sin. There's a huge esoteric aspect. I mean, law is magic, 100%. The Black's Law Dictionary is a book of necromancy. It's words to control and summon and control the dead, because we're all dead, corporations. It's kind of what I'm going to get into tonight. So we went over how the 14th Amendment usurped the citizenry of the states, turned everybody into a corporate franchise, because the United States is not a nation. It is a federal corporation. It has always been a federal corporation, and it never had citizenry of its own until the 14th Amendment. So the 14th Amendment turns you into a bankrupt corporate franchise. You're non-living, and right, and you're considered civiliter mortis, which means civilly dead in the eyes of the law. That's why the judge wears the black robe. He's a Talmudic priest. He's governing over the dead as Osiris. Now, sin is debt. Now, what happened when they mortgaged our property rights for a loan? Our property rights were held in trust, or are held in trust right now. Okay. Our property rights are actually the collateral for the loan, because the only way that you can mortgage property before the person has the property is by mortgaging their property rights. So the property rights are what's held in trust. What does it say on the top of the dollar bill?
Hang on, I just had one out. What, the Federal Reserve part or below that?
It says below that.
United States of America.
In
What's that?
In God we trust.
Well, where is that? That's on the back.
Right.
Yeah, on the back, yeah.
In God we trust. It's not talking about trust as in fidelity. Well, in a sense it is. It's actually talking about the trust, because there's a scripture in the Bible that says, that which you bind on earth, I will bind in heaven. That which you loose on earth, I will loose in heaven. That's literally the scripture governing contracts. That's how they circumvent karmic repercussions, by getting you to agree to things. So you get what I'm saying? And the trust that they're talking about is the actual trust that was created as part of your indenture, right? So also the money, sin being the moon god, us calling money, moon, money, right? One eye, all that. If you look at the sun and the moon, right? Monai, exactly. Moon. It's all And sin is debt. Debt is sin in the Bible. It says that as well, right? So how it says trespasses, or used to say trespasses, now it says debts or debtors. It's because etymologically it's the same thing. You know, that's how I think the whole Mandela thing works. But I'm not getting into the crazy stuff. I wanted to start with this this video. If it plays, hopefully it plays halfway decent. I'm gonna actually,
if it doesn't, ship me the link and I'll do it from here.
well,
or do you have it downloaded or something?
no, it's not downloaded. It's on. I don't even have Instagram because I can't stand that shit. But the video just happens to be on Instagram, so we're gonna try to play it. All right, can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, man.
Okay, here we go.
The entity known as Ryan Michael Thor, just to clear that. I am here on special appearance under threat, duress, and coercion to challenge subject matter jurisdiction and also personal jurisdiction as well. I filed my paperwork for you on Friday, and the clerk illegally denied it. I went again this morning and filed my paperwork again for you. The clerk again illegally denied it, even though I gave her a notice telling her it's a felony for her not to accept my paperwork. And actually, it's in law, it's considered.
That flag in the background there is denoting federal military jurisdiction. He's actually going to call her ass out on it. It's excellent. This is exactly how every case should be handled.
Filed when I gave it to her. So well, Your Honor, I mean, I'm going to have to ask a few questions first, which first of all is I need to understand the nature and the cause of the charges against me, as well as I need to know, is this a civil jurisdiction or criminal jurisdiction? Criminal.
Civil law is synonymous with Roman law, and it's Uniform Commercial Code, which is a subsection of maritime law. Common law is the law of the land. So when he said civil jurisdiction or criminal jurisdiction, our American criminal jurisdiction is supposed to be under common law, which is what he's going to get into. Here, listen.
Ryan Thor is the living man. Ryan Michael Thor is the defendant in error. It's the artificial person. So thank you, Your Honor. Let the record of the court show that the action against me is criminal. And now I have another question, because the Constitution grants us two different criminal jurisdictions, okay? One criminal jurisdiction is under the common law, and the other is under the criminal jurisdiction of admiralty or military tribunal venue from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. Well, I need to know which of these two jurisdictions that you intend to try me. It's very important because they're done different ways. The rules of civil procedure are very different in a criminal jurisdiction, obviously, for common law and a military. Your Honor, I need to get these other questions answered. I need to know what the jurisdiction is, and I need to know also who the injured party is. You know, the nature and cause of this. I need to know who the injured party is. I need to know who's bringing the claim. Thank you, Your Honor, but I don't think you'd be violating your oath of office by doing your duty under the Constitution. Okay? Your Honor, I just motioned for a dismissal because if this is a criminal jurisdiction, as you're claiming, I need to see a verified complaint and I need from the injured party, and I have to have an opportunity to face my accuser, as you mentioned at the beginning of this entire hearing. So who is the injured party? That's the question. Who's the injured party? Why am I here? I don't understand why I'm here.
All right. All right, so what else? So he just has count 1 and count 2, and he showed the proof of claim, right? All right, sir, I'm going to just exercise my discretion. I'm going to dismiss count 1 and dismiss count 2 and just order the fees that you've already paid to cover court costs.
No, she's trying to take his money. She just dismissed the charges that he's there for, but she's trying to keep his money. I'm going to explain why here shortly. But see how this is what I explain to you guys all the time, that there is no silver bullet. But when you know what you're talking about, they don't want the scam to be exposed. They have no excuse for what they're doing. And I'll explain what he was saying in here more in depth so you can understand what he meant, the difference between the Article 3 and the Article 1 courts. This is a military tribunal under maritime law. That's what Chile de Castro, if you guys see, just got 6 months. That's how the judge was able to have a bench trial. We have a constitutional right to a trial by jury. And you can only have a bench trial where the judge is the jury under special maritime admiralty jurisdiction, which is a wartime jurisdiction. This is the federal occupation of our several Confederate states. And if you're confused about why I call them Confederate, just watch the last video. All states are Confederate. But she's going to try to keep his money, even though she just dismissed the cases. And listen to this.
Okay.
So
no charges are pending against you. They've been dismissed. Interest of justice.
So I'm letting the record show that the defendant, Ryan Michael Thor, with case CMZ 606-406, all charges are dismissed. Is that correct?
And whatever fees were paid are going towards court costs, okay?
Well, those fees are bail, and they should be returned after dismissal.
Okay. You know what? I don't have a problem with returning your fees.
Thank you.
All right. Wait. All right. Have a good day, Mr. Thor.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Next case.
And that is how you own the bar.
That's it, baby, right there.
Right? So she tried to keep his money for the exact that is the title of the show tonight. They were farming him for securities. So I brought up what I brought up at the beginning of the show tonight and pointed out how we are the security. We are the collateral for all of these debt securities that are generated, all commercial paper. Well, check this out, right? Hold on 1 second. We're going to go to the window this time. Just want to show you guys this. This is Black's Law 2nd edition. Bank, a bench or seat. The bench or tribunal occupied by the judges, the seat of judgment. A court, the full bench, the full court. The assembly of all judges, a court sitting in bank, right? So, and then of course the second one, an institution of great value in the commercial world, empowered to receive deposits of money. But courts are banks also. Yeah. So what she's doing, what they did was they took him. So your property rights were mortgaged. I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, and let me know if it's not clear. But so they create an attachment. So your property rights were mortgaged, placed in trust. A loan was given, right? An account was made, and now there's a trust estate. And all of the property that you acquire throughout your life is supposed to be registered, like your home, your car, stuff like that. And it's added to be part of this trust estate, right? And you are just the trustee of this estate because you never claim your estate. You don't know to claim your estate. You're non-living to them. You're just a corporate vessel, maritime vessel. And yep. You're not a state citizen. So you're not alive. You're a federal citizen, a corporation, and you're the trustee of the estate. So you're driving on the road, that your driver's license on the back of your car is actually called commercial advertising in the United States Code. That is commercial advertising. That commercial advertising links to an account number. Okay. Just like your driver's license links to an account number. They link to your Social Security investment account, which we're going to get into today. Now, this is the primary contractual nexus that ties you to the federal corporation, and the primary collateral underwriting all of these securities that are generated. So what they do, they create an attachment. Literally, I think it's Title 18 in the United States Code. It's called creating an attachment. So they pull you over, the cop pulls you over, he turns on his lights, creates a state of peril for no crime. And like he said, under common law, somebody had asked me a question on one of my videos and said, what do you consider a crime? A crime requires a victim, period. Under common law, there has to be a victim. And you have the right to face your accuser. You have the right to know who said what about you and what's going on, right? So he creates a state of peril for no crime at all, which is unlawful, pulls you over, and now he's trying to create an attachment to your trust estate for a pretended violation of what ultimately amounts to a revenue code. So the motor vehicle code is under the Internal Revenue Code. He says, oh, your blinker, you turned without a blinker, or you're speeding or whatever, right? He's like, yeah, I'm going to give you a citation. Okay, so he's writing you up and citing this code, right? That's not a law. It's just a revenue code. And he says you have to appear in court. It's actually an offer to contract, and you get a summons because you're dead, remember? So they're going to summon you. And now what happens is the court generates this ticket. Now remember, all of our currency is debt. So the court is generating this ticket. It's their own commercial paper, and they are going to turn around and sell it to a private institutional investor. It's actually called, I went through and found out what this type of security was called for you guys. It is called, and for myself, obviously, but there's actually laws against offering them publicly. Whoops, no, this is Admiralty jurisdiction. Hold on. I got so many tabs open, my computer takes. It's a Rule 506 security, okay? And it says enables issue. It says generally any security offering must comply with Section 5, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that says securities may not be sold to more than 35 non-accredited investors, any non-accredited, but they cannot make public offerings of this Rule 506 security. So what they do is they sell them to private institutional investors, okay? And you have to be a special class of person. You have to be an owner to be able to buy these securities, okay? And that's what they're doing. So you get charged in the court for whatever, right? Doesn't matter. And what they're going to do is they're going to turn around and generate a bond if it's a crime, right? Or whatever, if they consider it a crime, they generate a bond. That bond is just like any other bond. It's an interest-bearing bond, right? And then they turn around and sell that bond to a private institutional investor and take his money in that video we just watched, because they had already generated the commercial paper and they had already sold the commercial paper. And she was trying to make sure the court didn't lose this. Oh, it's going to go to court costs. You mean it's going to go to cover that bad paper you sold, right?
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Yeah. She wanted to keep that money to cover the paper that they sold, because now the court has to cover that money. No matter what, the investor's not going to be out. So they had to cover that money. Now, what he was talking about with the Article 1 versus Article 3 court is, so if we pull up the Constitution, let me pull it up real quick for you guys. Preamble, blah, blah, blah. Article 1. And I'm going to share my screen. I'll just pull up that. Come on. Window. All right. So he said that Congress creates two criminal jurisdictions, right? Or the Constitution allows for two criminal jurisdictions. So the first one, or the main one that's under the judicial branch, is going to be Article 3, Section 2, which covers the judicial power of the United States. And it says that the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity. And I say this all the time because like I point this out all the time, because this distinction shows you that there is a difference between law and equity. Now, all of these administrative third-party courts of arbitration mediating between the private corporate municipality and the corporate United States, and this court itself is a private corporation and it's a bank. They're dealing only in equity. Now, the difference between law and equity is the regulation of contracts. It's the administration of contracts. So when you go to a court of equity, right, and there is a common law court of equity, this was under the judicial power, the Article 3 courts. But the common law of equity is different than the commercial maritime law equity, right? But it's still just the government of contracts. And you can only end up in the maritime commercial law of equity through the common law of equity in the first place. So what I mean by that is your first contract has to take place in this court, but I'm digressing. So this is the criminal court. When it talks about law, it means common law. And in common law, which is our law in this country, is supposed to be, there has to be a victim. There has to be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have a crime without a victim, right? And he says, who's bringing the case against me? And she says, the state. How can the state be a victim of what?
Right, exactly. All right, bring in the state, please.
Right. Yeah. Can I see that? Can the state stand up and identify itself, please? And the quiz, shut up. So here's the court he was actually calling her out on. It's an Article 1, Section 8 court. Let me make sure I'm under it. Yeah. It's an Article 1, Section 8 court. Let's see. This one right here is part of it, to create a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcy throughout the United States. Is literally why it's called the Uniform Commercial Code. And what the Uniform Commercial Code is the administration of bankruptcy, of the bankruptcy of 1933, right? And let's see, where's it at here? This one right here. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. Okay, so this is what they're operating under, is special maritime territorial jurisdiction. Now, how did they do this? Well, after they mortgaged, so here's the problem they were having. Long v. Rasmussen. So after the 14th Amendment started usurping the citizenry of each of the several states, and the federal government was now declaring the state citizens to be federal citizens, and then telling the state that they couldn't interfere with anything the federal government said that the federal citizens could and could not do. The problem was they didn't get everybody in on it yet. This case had happened in 1922, and I've shown this before. And notice here it says inequity. It says inequity because this is a common law court, so it's making the distinction between law and equity. It says this is equity. The IRS agent attempted to take this lady's property for taxes, but she wasn't a federal citizen and she wasn't subject to the tax code. Okay. Now, another interesting thing about that is she couldn't take the United States to court or the IRS. So she actually took the IRS agent personally to court. And that's who Rasmussen is. She had to take him personally to court and charge him for, basically sue him for a breach of trust, breach of his office. So, let's see here. It says right here, the revenue laws are a code or a system and regulation of tax assessment and collection. They relate to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. The latter are without their scope. No procedure is prescribed for non-taxpayers, and no attempt is made to annul any of their rights and remedies in due course of law. With them, Congress does not assume to deal. They are neither of the subject nor of the object of the revenue laws. So when they say, of course, these are bar pirates, and they don't want to make it completely obvious, but it's very obvious what's going on here when you know the law. She was a state citizen, not a federal citizen. When they say taxpayer, they don't mean somebody who pays sales tax and your normal import and export taxes and the proper tax system. They mean income taxpayer. Right. And only Federal citizens are subject to the income tax. Corporations, and actually more specifically, we're going to get into that, only corporations, and to this day, only corporations are subject to the income tax. And that's kind of how, so this is the problem they were dealing with. They couldn't apply these laws to state citizens, to non-taxpayers. And so obviously she won this case, and she was reimbursed for her damages and all, and that guy got in a shitload of trouble. Well, that was the issue they were having. And so what they did in 1933, you guys obviously know, they mortgaged our property rights. I mean, I know I show it a lot, but you really can't get this through your head enough. You know what I mean? If I can find this with any kind of speed, I've got so many files. But yeah, March 9th, 1933, they mortgaged your property rights.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't mortgage your property rights. They mortgaged the property rights of the United States citizen. And that's the important distinction. But they had to get.
We lost you. We have lost Ryan's audio.
What? You can't hear me?
Oh, we got it back now.
Of course. So this right here, this is very important to understand the ramifications of this. It says, under the new law, the money will be issued to the banks in return for government obligations, bills of exchange, drafts, notes, trade acceptances, and bankers' acceptances. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people in the nation. Even if you don't understand the massive ramifications of that action by Congress, that complete overreach of power and jurisdiction, you should at least be stuck on like, wait a minute, I didn't agree to have my property mortgaged, my homes and other like our homes and other properties. That's pretty serious, man. That's like me going to my dad's house and just being like, hey, I need some money, so I'm going to use your house and your Jeep as collateral. And I'm going to let you hang on to it, but you're going to now have to start making regular payments every year to keep it, to help pay my loan back. That's the equivalent of what they've done. Except for you got to think about this. So the homes and other property of the people of the nation, it wasn't just the people of the nation at that time. They mean in perpetuity. They mean like it wasn't just one generation of people's homes and property. So how do they do that? How do they mortgage your property before you even get it? How do they do that? They mortgage your property.
They make you dead first.
Yeah, they mortgage your property rights. They mortgage you. You are what is mortgaged, right? So when they did this, they still didn't have everybody, because this is only for the United States citizen, and it doesn't say that, it says all the people in the nation, but Congress only had jurisdiction over United States citizens. So this is what they did next. Social Security Act of 1935, right? They created 10 Social Security zones, and they overlaid these zones like a clear sheet of glass over the states. And they also used the zip code. It's called the Zone Improvement Program. And they assigned each area of the state, of each of the states, a federal zip code. And when you adopt this Social Security number and you adopt this federal zip code, you have now placed yourself in federal jurisdiction. So this I can't stress enough. So we say resident, right? Let's see if it just pops up. Yes, it does. All right, so we say just resident. This is Michigan compiled laws, right? says resident means every person who resides in this state and establishes that he or she is legally present in the United States. So it says legally present in the United States, because Article 9 of the Uniform Commercial Code, or Section 9 of the Uniform Commercial Code, under location of the debtor, will tell you that the United States is located in the District of Columbia. So if you're in Michigan, you cannot be, let's see if I can pull it. It's right there. Look at this. It's going smooth tonight.
Smoother than cat shit on linoleum, right?
Yeah. Uniform Commercial Code, Section 9-307, location of debtor. Under subsection H, location of the United States. United States is located in the District of Columbia. Right? So when you look at this, says establishes that you're legally present in the United States. Well, that's because that's how you do that, is you adopt a social security number and use that social security number in association with the zip code, or even just the use of the social security number by itself places you in United States federal territory, which is under special maritime admiralty jurisdiction. We come over here and look at this. It says the term special maritime admiralty, or special maritime and territorial jurisdiction in the United States, as used in this title, includes the high seas, which is why everything is maritime terms, right? Currency, bank, citizenship, right? Everything's a ship. You got is shipping, for instance, when things are delivered by truck, it's not called trucking, it's called shipping,
right?
Because it's all the high seas of commerce, and everything is commerce right now. Everything is considered to be commercial, and that's under the Trading with the Enemy Act. Watch the previous videos I've done, because that's a whole rabbit hole in itself, how you're now an enemy of the state. But anybody engaged in commercial activity with these notes issued by a foreign private bank are considered enemies of the state. So, and it says maritime jurisdiction in the United States, and any vessel, but if we go down here, any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the United States and under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction thereof. And it says concurrent because it's under the concurrent jurisdiction of the state itself. Now, I used to think, up until recently, that they conquered the states, right? They definitely have militarily occupied the states. But they didn't actually conquer the states. The states were complicit in giving up their sovereignty for money and converting over to administrative corporate states, right? And so if we look at, let's see, we pull up, I got a bunch of stuff. We probably won't even go through all this stuff, but hold on, where are you?
So there's something I was thinking about that. You know, you always end up having to pay for things to be shipped and shipping and handling. What's the handling part of it? You know, I'm like, I just want my ship. I just want it shipped. Don't be handling my shit. Just ship it. We grubbing all over it, handling it and shit. What are you doing?
Right, exactly. So the way that they did this was, and they got the states to make money off of it. So one, they did the Public Salary Tax Act of 1939, where they said they can tax the income of all federal employees. Well, federal citizens are corporations, and every United States citizen is actually a federal employee because you agree to receive retirement benefits and welfare from this corporation. So they consider you an employee. So when they created this 10 Social Security zones and everybody adopted a Social Security number and started paying into this investment account, they did the Buck Act of 1935 and then amended it in 1940. Let me tell you something about, before I even show you guys this right here, let me tell you something about how hard this was to find. Yeah, go ahead and try to look up. I challenge anybody to go try to look up the Buck Act of 1940. and see if you can just pull up a PDF. I guarantee you can't. You'll come across a lot of information of people talking about the Buck Act, because this is actually one of the primary nexuses between the Fed and the state that allows the state to still operate in the capacity of a government while converting all of its citizenry over to federal citizens. So the state doesn't even have any citizens of its own outside of corporations. It instead has been given authority over the federal citizens in its territory. So now you're a foreigner to the state, and the state has been subbed out to all these private municipal corporations that literally fleece you through the revenue laws. And this was so hard to find. I spent over an hour sifting through photographs on Library of Congress just to find this. And I guarantee you nobody can just find this. This was so hard to find. But it says to permit the states to extend their sales, use, and income taxes to persons residing or carrying on business, or to transactions occurring in federal areas, and for other purposes, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled, that A, no person shall be relieved from liability for payment of, collection of, or accounting for any sales or use tax levied by any state or by any duly constituted taxing authority therein, having jurisdiction to levy such a tax on the ground that the sale or use with respect to which such tax is levied occurred in whole or in part within a federal area. When you read this stuff, your eyes literally want to cross, and they write it that way intentionally. But every word is carefully chosen. And what this essentially does, and yeah, this is how you actually have to look at it. You have to look at pages of it and then zoom in and read it, try to read it, pull it down, pull it up. Oh, that's how inconvenient they make this, right? But anyways, this gave the states jurisdiction over federal citizens, because the plan was to take away your state citizenry. You could not be a dead corporation while you were still one of we the people, living state citizens. So now, one thing you'll never hear your governor refer to you as? What will you never hear the governor refer to you as?
I'm sorry, I was muted. The people?
Well, they might say the people, but what will they never call you? They'll never call you a citizen. Pull up one article that says governor addresses Michigan citizens or Virginia citizens. You'll never find it.
Michigan residents, they always say. Residents.
Yeah. Because resident is short for resident alien. Because remember, the location of the United States is the District of Columbia. You have established legal presence in federal territory. You are now a foreigner. You're not from Virginia or Michigan anymore. You're a foreigner. So you're a resident. And so this is how they did it. This is mind-blowing. They allowed the states to keep operating in their capacities, and in fact made it's even a larger incentive, because now they can apply all the revenue codes that only applied to federal citizens before. They can apply those to their own citizens who are no longer citizens anymore. They're now residents, and they're foreigners, and they're corporations. So this allowed them. Look at this. This is Washington. Where were we at here? I just had it up. Come on. I had it up a second ago. It was right here. State accepts provisions of the Federal Buck Act. This state hereby accepts jurisdiction over all federal areas located within its exterior boundaries to the extent that the power and authority to levy and collect taxes therein is granted by that certain act of the 76th Congress of the United States, approved by the President October 9th. And there's always something, they always do this stuff in October. Just like the Trading with the Enemy Act was October 9th, I'm pretty sure. and entitled an act to permit the states to extend their sales, use, and income tax to persons residing or carrying on business or to transactions occurring in federal areas and for other purposes. So this right here, that's how they did that. Now, as a result of creating these 10 Social Security zones and passing the Federal Employee Tax Act and the Federal the Income Tax Act and the Buck Act, another curious thing happened behind the scenes throughout all this time, right? Look at this. The United States Corporation Company. Now, I've been looking into this, and this corporation company has something to do with the appraisal, the value, the licensing. I think that all the municipal corporations, all the corporations in general, are registered through the United States Corporation Company. It's also called the Corporation Services Company, is its agent. Now, all the courts and everything are run through the Corporation Services Company, like all the bonds and everything, certificates, bonds, debentures, all the debt securities are run through the Corporation Services Company. I kept coming across this in my research when I was looking at different Michigan courthouses, and I would always end up at a Corporation Services Company. Well, then I found out, I came across this just the other day. Actually, a guy did a video on Rumble, and he thought, that this was actually talking about the government, but this is not the government. This is the government's way of profiting off of everything, right? As a private corporation. So he was showing all these different corporation companies, and I thought there was only one in Florida. I think I had shown it on my show before. It was created in 1925. This one, I think I have its, yeah, I showed this before. Now, this is the one from Florida, and I thought this was the only one. And all of the addressees are, their mailing addresses or the residences, whatever you want to call them, are in New York. And there's 3 principal officers to the corporation company in general, and it's Rodman Ward III. Well, it's here. Let's look at one. We'll go. So the Corporation Company of the United States. Now look at the wording. The Corporation Company of United States. So I think Corporation Company is even bigger than the United States. I think it's probably international, and this one is just of United States. And then all of the sub corporations that would probably be the agent for this corporation is called the United States Corporation Company. Guess how many of these there are? 50.
What a coinkydink,
Right. There's one in each state, like in Maryland, Mississippi, Florida, Arkansas, Indiana, Louisiana. And they've since made it harder to find their articles of association, but the one from Ohio that the guy had on his video, this one, that now coincidentally, if you go here, say open link in new tab, and we'll go here, and we want to go look at the articles of incorporation. So we'll go to the registry page, right? And we go corporation company of the United States Corporation Company. States Corporation Company. And I said,
See what DXL Master said in here: state and local taxation of privately owned property located on federal areas. Took me 2 months, right? Trying to find it.
So here we are, United States Corporation Company, right? Show details of report. So we might be in luck this time. Foreign change of address, foreign license report, for profit. We want the articles of association. But let's see, what's the oldest one? This one we can go to download image. This didn't go through last time I tried to do this. It said the link was bad. Okay, so United States Corporation Company, a foreign corporation desiring to qualify as a foreign corporation in Ohio pursuant to the provisions of section whatever, we don't care, General Code of Ohio, does hereby certify as followed. The name is a corporation company. It is a corporation organized under the laws of New York. The corporate address of its principal office outside the state of Ohio is 150 Broadway, New York City. The name of the county, blah, 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 hereby constitutes and appoints Morris Lopper, it looks like. Consents irrevocably to the service of process on such person. Yeah, so that's for to get a hold of them. Yeah, they don't make this easy to read. So there's something at the end. Being duly sworn. That when the guy was reading it, and I don't think, but anyways, it said because the Secretary of State didn't believe that they were doing business. The Secretary of State of Ohio didn't believe they were doing business in the state. It said on the paper he showed on his video, and this is the first time I've been able to pull this up, actually, which is cool. I'm gonna have to do more research, but each one that you look up, and just so you guys know, if you want to go do it yourself, you go on the corporation, open corporates, which is becoming harder to navigate. You have to create an account to look at the paperwork. And you just type in United States Corporation Company, and then you go to each one and look at their articles of incorporation if you can find it. Like this one, you can obviously see there was an articles of incorporation, but it's not here. Let's see what this is. Doing business without a license. By its representative appear, whereas evidence introduced it. All the taxes and fees evaded by reason of its non-compliance with the Ohio Foreign Corporation Act. But see how this United States Corporation Company is a foreign corporation to Ohio. It's a big point of everything that I talk about. Each of the states are foreign to one another, and the United States is foreign to all of them as well. So let's see, did I pull up? So you've got this is the corporate charter. This one says to prepare a cause to be prepared and procure to be filed, recorded, registered, published, issued, or granted in accordance with law, articles or certificates of incorporation, applications for letters patent. Now, letters patent, before there was the corporation, I found some new stuff out about the company's house. The company's house is the company's house in UK, the one we go to look at the United States. So we go United States. If we pull this up, this is the United States as a foreign corporation. I am fairly certain that this United States actually used to be the Virginia company. So the way that this works right here, the company's house is now the registry for companies. The difference between a company and a corporation is a company is a government. It can act as a government. It can issue warrants of war. It can colonize. It can do all these things. That's why we look back in history. We had the East India Trading Company colonized India. It would wage war. It had a military. The Virginia Company colonized Virginia, right? And it had its own military. It could wage war. It could do all these things. Well, these used to be created through royal letters patent. That's what a letters patent is it creates a company, right? So that's why I find it interesting that this here says that it will issue applications for letters, patent, charters, and other instruments relating to incorporation and organization of corporations and joint stock companies. A joint stock company, the United States Corporation, is a joint stock company. You're one of the shareholders. That's what it means by joint stock. Your birth certificate represents one voter share, right? So I think, and of course, this is just a theory, I'm telling you guys, and The fact that there's one of these in every single state, and the fact that the courthouses all deal with the Corporation Services Company, which is a registered agent of the United States Corporation Company. I think that all these municipal corporations are registered through the United States Corporation Company. And I think this is the main nexus for all of the securities farming that we're talking about tonight. So, you know, you get charged, they create an attachment to your trust estate, a security is generated the same way that the dollar bill was generated. These Federal Reserve notes were generated from the mortgage of your property rights. That's what happens when you go to court. It's called a judicial mortgage. Okay, it's called a judicial mortgage. If we go to mortgage, let's see, pop up. Yeah, so we got legal definition of mortgage, and we go down here to Black's Law, or not Black's Law, sorry, Bouvier's Law Dictionary. So legal mortgage,
it's racist, man.
Yeah, then you have the judicial mortgage, is that resulting from judgment. So in the same way that this mortgage generated securities, right? The judges, their rulings create mortgages. So trust indentures, like you enter in an agreement to receive something, say like the voyage example I use all the time, and the ship captain enters into an agreement to give you a trip to the colonies in exchange for your 5 years of your labor. So you enter into this agreement, that contract becomes a valuable commercial paper. What you did was you mortgaged yourself, you mortgaged your labor as collateral for what you wanted to receive. And that commercial paper represents the monetary value of that ship voyage, which equates to 5 years of your labor. Now that contract also represents a trust indenture. And this is a very simplified example. Now, in order to satisfy that contract, you have to perform the obligations of the trust indenture, right? So, and now that ship captain can turn around and sell that commercial paper for money, you know, like immediately. Like, so he can go to a plantation owner and be like, hey, I got this indentured servant. It's got 5 years of labor on his contract. You want to buy this contract? That contract in itself is a form of currency, commercial paper. And you're under a trust indenture with it. Well, it's the same thing that's going on with us. And it's also the same thing when the judge creates a judicial mortgage. So say he says to you, Dad, he says, you've got 2 years probation with drug testing 3 times a week and blah, 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 right?
All right.
Well, that's a contract that just was created, and it has valuable consideration. You've got court fines and fees, supervisory fees, right? You've got all these different, it's got monetary value. They sell these contracts, I'm telling you, they do, to institutional investors. It's the Rule 506 securities. And that's how this whole thing works. So it's called a judicial mortgage right here. Boom. And you're also considered dead because you're mortgaged, right? Another reason that the judge wears the black robe is because he's killing you with the judicial mortgage, with the judgment. He's governing over the dead. But you're already dead in this instance. So this was back before everybody was dead. Bouvier from 1856. Let's see, Law Dictionary adapted the Constitution and laws of the United States. Published 1856. But anyways, so back to the company. So the companies, before this Companies House registry, they were issued by letters patent from the Crown. The Virginia Company was created in 1606. The East India Trading Company was created in 1600. I am of the opinion that the Virginia Company became the original corporate United States of America, the one that was notified on the 3rd of July, 1776. I think they changed their company name to the United States of America. But either way, it's all British. So let's go back here.
Gary asked, was the Virginia company tied in with the Dutch East India Company?
They're all somewhat tied in the fact that they're all the same wealthy oligarchs invested in them. You know what I mean? But there were different companies. But yeah, they're all ultimately tied into the same families, tied into the same black nobility over in Italy. It's an interesting study for sure. East India Trading Company was actually the most profitable company in history, worth $7 trillion. $7 trillion. It's insane. And they're the ones who enslaved India, obviously. But so yeah, accepts provisions of the Buck Act. Now, the other aspect of this, and then we can have discussion. I'll open it up for questions. People, I might even throw a link in the chat, but I just wanted to go through the securities farming thing because that's the name of the game right now. Is creating an attachment to your trust estate, dragging you into their bank so that they can use you as surety to generate commercial paper that they then sell to private institutional investors. And these securities are not allowed to be offered publicly. And there's different terminology used for them too. It's let me see if I can. So we got Rule 506. I'm looking on my phone. Comply with 35. Hold on. Yeah, I pulled up the wrong thing. I've got a bunch of special maritime. Yeah, I'll have to look more into it. But anyways, they're not allowed to offer those securities publicly at all. They can only offer those securities to accredited institutional investors that are vouched for. They have to be vouched for. And it literally says this in the Securities and Exchange Manual or whatever it's called. Under the Securities and Exchange Commission, they have to be vouched for. And that's who. So like, I'll give you guys an example real quick before I go to the municipalities. So we'll go to Administrative Procedures Act 1969. And this is once everything was converted over. They really did a lot of all the states adopted the Uniform Commercial Code between the 60s and 70s. All the states adopted the Administrative Procedures Act between the 60s and the 70s. All of them adopted, it's called a Judicature Act, where they push everything over into courts of equity and they eliminate the common law venue between the 60s and 70s. Every single one. I don't care what state you live in. You can just type in, here we'll do another. Well, let me click on this and then that'll open up over here. And then I'll go back here and just pick a state at random. I don't even care. Say Nebraska.
That is a good state. Nebraska. What do we know about Nebraska? Not much.
Right. Look, right here. Here it is. For purposes of the Administrative Procedures Act, agency shall mean board, commission, department, officer, visit, division, or other administrative office unit of the state government authorized by law to make rules and regulations. So, and what they did, this is important, what they did is they converted the lawful seats of Republican government into these administrative corporate, it's not government, they're quasi-governmental corporations that are acting as government and administrating the bankruptcy. That's why it's called administrative procedure. This is all about administrating the bankruptcy now, right? So here it is, the revised statutes, Administrative Procedures Act. Let's say Wyoming, right? Administrative procedures, right? Wyoming Administrative Procedures Act. Any state you look up, they all did this. Well, I should get rid of the 69 because it's different years, but they all did this all between the 60s and 70s. And then I'm going to show you guys something. Administrative Procedures Act, Texas, right? So each one did this. Now, let me get out of this. Go here. Enact to provide. Next statute. Oh, this one is inconvenient. So we do short title definition. Sure, we'll go here. Definitions. I love this one. Now you want to talk about this crazy lawyer speak word magic bullshit that they do. We're going to go to the definition of the word rule. Let's see here. Well, we got to go back. This is really hard to navigate one. I don't like this. Here, let's do a different administrative. We'll go to a different one. Administrative. Yeah. So where's the one I usually go to? Right here.
Oh no, your connection's not private.
Right. Stupid. Being a pain in my ass. I don't care if my connection's not private. So what the hell? Why can't I just get the normal website that I go to? They must have, did they change it? Like, what the hell? General provisions. So I'll just say that. Yeah, here we go. L to R. Sorry about that, guys. So, and I still got to go over a page, apparently. Rule defined. Rule means an agency, regulation, state. Notice that, like, the main thing that governs Michigan courts is called Michigan court rules. Or I'm sure Virginia has it. They all have it. These rules. Rules are not laws. Rules are administrative. This is all about administrating the bankruptcy, right? So a rule means an agency, regulation, statement, standard, policy, ruling, or instruction of general applicability that implements or applies law enforced or administered by the agency, that prescribes the organization, procedure, practice of the agency, including the amendment, suspension, or rescission of the law enforced or administered by the agency. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Rule does not include any of the following. Right? So I'm not even going to read through all this. I'm just going to go to the one that matters. G, an intergovernmental, interagency, or intra-agency memorandum, directive, or communication that does not affect the rights or procedures and practices available to the public. So your eyes glaze over, they cross. You don't know what you just read. Let's make it simple. Rule does not include, we're going to skip all this word salad with just something. Okay, so rule does not include something that does not affect the rights of or procedures and practices available to the public. It is not something that does not affect. That's a double negative. That means that a rule is something that affects the rights, procedures, and practices available to the public, right? That's what that means. Do you it's confusing, right? But do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's a double negative. And you see how they did that? Rule does not include something that does not affect. That's that crazy, small hat word magic bullshit that they do. And they're like, oh, we put it in there. If you just read it, if you weren't such a stupid goyim, you know what I mean? Then you probably would have known what you were reading. Yeah, okay. So that's interesting. The other interesting thing about this, let's see if we can go, because it says agency. So it's talking about government or these administrative procedures that are being carried out by these agencies, quote unquote, right? So we're going to go to, let's see, what is an agency? Agency means a state, department, bureau, division, section, board, commission, trustee, authority, or officer created by the Constitution, statute, or agency action, subject to blah, 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 retirement board created by the Municipal Employees Retirement Act of 1984. Agency does not include an agency in the legislative or judicial branch of government. So it's not your lawful government. These agencies are not legislative or judicial. They're operating under the exclusive maritime jurisdiction of the executive branch of government. Okay. And they are not your lawful government at all. So here's the reason. So this was 1969. The reason I brought this up in the first place was because we were talking about how they sell securities, right? Well, they sell their securities through what's called associations. Okay. We can go through, let's look when the district, we'll go Michigan District Court Judges, right? Whoops. Michigan District Court Judges Association. Home. Look at that. Look at when they were created.
1969.
Look at when the Administrative Procedures Act created these agencies to start administering the bankruptcy. 1969. Coincidence? I think not.
Oh, most likely. Now, come on.
Right. So
you have to understand is this is a world full of coincidences that you just don't understand. See?
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
You believe in conspiracy theories and shit. See? All I have to do is say that, and automatically now you're a weirdo. See?
Right. Exactly. So I find some good. I don't take anything that I read at face value. I always verify it through research, but I tell you guys the best place to look for leads are in these private WordPress articles. And this is a pretty good one, right? And this is exactly, it just tied in with what we're talking about tonight, so I decided to present it. It says, first, understand that the government is a collection of private corporations. Chances are you live in an incorporated municipality. Now, that is, the municipalities literally say whether they're incorporated or unincorporated, don't they?
Yeah.
Which is in turn located within the state. This is the corporation acting as government of that city. For instance, I live in Draper City Corporation. This guy does. And around me are the Provo City Corporation and Salt Lake City Corporation. These are the actual names of the city governments called incorporated municipalities. So I contend that these corporations were all reincorporated through the United States Corporation Company. That's how I think it works. That's literally how I think it works.
Like a top-down deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The corporate... Go ahead.
Of course. It's that top-down pyramid, man. It's going to be that.
Yeah. The corporate municipality then creates de facto statutory code, for which they nickname the law. Through most of these codes are not actually congressionally approved law, approved by the so-called representative congressman, but are instead called what is called prima facie presumed law, for which all citizens are required by the corporation they contract with to follow with their due consent. And that is the big thing, is that, so if we go to, let's see if I can pull it up. It's Cruden versus Neal. $1796. I can give you guys the rundown of this. The guy was a loyalist, a British loyalist during the First American Civil War, also known as the Revolutionary War. So fuck people up with that, right? They're like, well, what do you mean the First American Civil War? So everybody was British. There was no United States. It's all British people fighting eeach other.
Yeah, it was a civil war, absolutely.
Yeah, it was the First American Civil War. But yeah, they it's funny because they called it that in the 1800s. There's actually books written about the Second American Civil War, referring to what we call just the Civil War.
Yeah, they called it the Second War for American Independence as well. That's the thing. There was these people called Tories that were, in favor of the crown and didn't approve of these people that were rebelling against the crown. And we call those people today bootlickers.
Yeah, they're everywhere. They love their servitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this guy was actually he was a Tory. He was a loyalist. And after the war was won, they wanted to try him for assisting England, not assisting the revolutionary efforts. See right here, it says that he had attached himself to the enemy. It held that if plaintiff was a citizen of this country before referred to hold on. Citizen of this country, section 101 before referred to is repealed as to him by several acts of the state legislature. Long story short, without reading this whole thing, he was a Tory, supported England. He didn't assist in the revolution. In fact, he was against it. And they wanted to try him for it after the war was over and we were established as a country. Well, the judge in this one, which I forget who it was, but we'll find out probably, he pointed out that there was no country to commit treason against at that point in time. And this is where it gets interesting. Let me find the actual quote. Yeah, right here. He said that he says that the majority shall prevail as a rule posterior to the formation of government and results from it. It is a rule not binding upon mankind in their natural state. He says there, every man is independent of all laws except for basically in a natural state. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. So that's huge. And they're basically saying, since you were abolishing the old, he consented to be under England's government. You're abolishing that form of government and starting a new government. And he, being in a state of nature, does not have to agree to that form of government. He doesn't have to be bound by that institution without his consent. And now the reason I bring this case up is because it applies to us. Between 33 and 83, they completely transformed our system of government, took away our common law avenues of justice, placed us under uniform commercial code. They completely created a new institution, and we don't have to be a part of it.
No.
Right? You have to consent. You have to create contractual nexuses. This is an excellent case to cite. Once you know how to point out that we've been placed under uniform commercial code and our entire system of law has been transformed into something that we never consented to. We're still told we're America, we're free country, right? It's all the shit we're told when really it couldn't be further from the truth.
No.
So that's
I will say this was really telling too. You remember back during Trump's little world tour that he did there was a lot of protocol broken. There was a lot of protocol broken and nobody said shit about it. Like, for instance, the behavior of the Queen, him walking ahead of the Queen. No, you don't do that. No one walks ahead of the Queen. You don't offer your hand to her. She offers hers to yours. I mean, it's some tight protocol. You don't touch the Queen. When you sit there, and that sheik that of Saudi Arabia, that king of Saudi Arabia, you're not allowed to touch him. Somebody will cut your fucking arm off immediately. And old Trump just walks up and smacks him out in the back like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" And I'm like, this is like totally bizarre, man. Totally bizarre. So what's going on with that shit, right?
Well, it's because he's the time traveling Messiah. Actually, looking into all that,
I'm starting to think he's being set up as the Antichrist, man. To tell you the truth,
it's possible. I can tell you, when you look into all that Barron Trump stuff, that's some pretty weird. When it comes to the when you take that into account with the Mandela effect type stuff.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
With that.
He was Barron Trump. He had which Trump's son's name is Barron Trump. He went to the center of the earth and found a time machine, and He took his advice from a guy named the Don, right?
Yeah.
And he goes and
What?
he ends up
What if
becoming
Barron? What if Barron is actually a version of Donald Trump from an earlier timeline?
right. Well, he goes and it gets even weirder. He goes into what was it? There was another book written by the same guy, and he goes and ends up becoming president. And he's got a guy in his cabinet. That book was written in 1900. He's got a guy in his cabinet named Pence, right? And it's basically the stuff going on in the book is the stuff going on during his presidency. It's pretty tripped out, man. I mean, I don't.
Ingersoll Lockwood.
That was his name, yeah.
Yeah, Ingersoll Lockwood. It kept going Ingersoll Rand, and I was like, no, that's a machine company. Wait a minute.
Yeah, he's so this guy though. I'm just gonna read a little bit more of this, then we can just open it up for conversation.
Yeah. That's Joyce says that Saudi Arabia's sword dance was bizarre, weird, and a bit scary. I agree, man. And you know they've set up. They've got the red heifers. They've set up for all this shit's ready to go, and I think they're gonna do a false flag, like an earthquake, and bring down that dome of the rock. Say it was an act of God. The eclipse shows it, and the devil comet, and all this other fucking shit. They'll just say, "Yeah, that's what it was." You know, watch it'll happen.
If they want that mosque, they're gonna get that mosque. I mean, they pretty much.
The thing is you have to do it. See, if God does it, that's one thing. Right? If it's an act of God does it, that's one thing. If Israel does it, you got to figure every freaking Islamic country in the world is going to go ape shit on Israel. I mean, they're already not getting a whole lot of support for their involvement in Gaza. You know,
no, they're not. They're not, though, because here's the thing: is while the populace may not be supporting what they do, the leadership of all of those Arab countries are installed and paid for by the Israel.
Iran.
I don't know about that.
I don't think Iran's in it, man.
How?
I think it's one of the real holdouts.
I don't see how it would be possible with the technology that they actually have, like the voice of God technology. Like they don't have to even be anywhere near you to touch you. You know what I mean? They don't they could make you go crazy. And everybody would just think you went crazy. Like the shit that they can do if they really wanted to do something to them. And here's the thing is Iran's cozied up with Russia, and Russia is 100% Rothschild controlled nation. Like for all these people that think Russia is not part of the central banking shit, it absolutely is. It's a major oil exporting country as well. And I just don't see Iran being independent. I don't. I just the last independent nations we've seen went out in the 2010s with Libya and Syria. And I think the only reason Iran wasn't part of that list is because they decided to play ball. I mean, they went in and you know what they did to Gaddafi is pretty wretched.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I can say it while I'm broadcasting on YouTube, but it involved sodomy and a rifle. So,
well, I know they've been trying to keep us every time, even with this Palestine thing, to have the swords rattling against Iran. And they've been, because after all, Iran's only a few short months away from having a nuclear missile and have been since I was about 12. So, there's a great danger there. No, but the thing is that I really do. I think that Iran's a real big thorn in the side. That's why they're still rattling sabers. You don't hear a whole lot about Syria anymore. If anybody capitulated, I believe it was Syria, because they're putting up with a U.S. military presence on their sovereign land and not doing anything about it while we steal their oil. That doesn't sound like what? You know what I'm saying?
Well, we always need a boogeyman. Here's the thing, and this goes back to we're not even supposed to have a standing army, period.
Oh,
right? But they've now made this. It's who was it that that warned against the industrial not Smedley Butler. It could have been Smedley Butler. No, it was somebody. Eisenhower. There you go. It was Eisenhower. He basically warned against the Leviathan of the military-industrial complex that had been created and the need for a constant enemy. You always need a boogeyman to justify all this defense. I mean, look what just happened with Boeing. Boeing literally just killed. I'm sorry, let's not say that, right? Somebody who was testifying against Boeing and was in the middle of giving testimony and deposition on the safety issues that Boeing is blatantly ignoring, decided to just up and kill himself, right? Right after he went and did his first day of testimony. And then the next day, he goes and shoots himself, and they found him in his car from an apparent suicide. It's just an apparent suicide. You just know it's a suicide, right? Like, it's just
right.
Like this guy who was just going to court and testifying against this major defense contracting company just it was like, you know what? I'd rather just shoot myself in the face, I think. And that's what he did. And nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. That's the type of shit these people can do. You know what I mean?
A little bit of talk. It's a little bit of talk on the internet about it for a few days, and then it's over on the new shit.
Right.
On the new shit.
Yeah. Couple comedians make fun of it, like JP Sears and stuff. You know, he's a pretty funny dude, but and he makes mention of it, and then it's on to the next thing. Like, oh yeah, hey, dude, don't worry about the fucking doors flying off these planes and all this shit.
Yeah, don't pay any attention to that.
Right. Don't worry about it. I tell you what, you couldn't pay me enough money to fly right now with the shit that's going on. But this, I just want to read a little bit more of this because this kind of gets into what we're talking about. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But what he says right here, he says the corporate municipality creates the de facto statutory code, right? The legal corporate code is only statutory law if it receives consent. That's why I showed the Cruden v. Neal. All of this stuff requires your consent. Everything requires your consent. And when you know what's being done and why you do not have to consent to it, just like that guy we watched at the beginning of the show tonight, you can trip these people up so bad that they just want to get rid of you. They're just like, you know what, case dismissed, but we're going to keep your money. You can't keep my money. Yeah, okay, well, I'm cool with that. We don't have to keep your money here, right? Yeah. And what he says, common law or case law should be studied and understood. It's up to you to know this case law, or at least the ones that apply to your specific case, which it is very important.
That was kind of like, these aren't the droids you're looking for. These aren't the droids we're looking for.
That is what he did.
Yeah, boy.
Well, he's right. Yeah. You dismiss my case, but you want to keep my money for what? There's no case. For court fee. Right. What she really meant was we already sold the commercial paper we generated off of this this case number, this docket number here, and we need to cover it. It's like, well, no, you need to cover it. I don't need to cover it. It's nothing.
Yeah, that's your fucking problem, man. That's a you problem, bitch.
Right. You tried to fucking commit piracy on me, and I kung fu'd your ass. Jurisdiction, juris law, diction, words. The words you use determine the law you're under. That's just a fact. So this right here, he says, if you want common law to be considered in a court of law, you'll have to research and present that case law to the court yourself. Now, he's wrong there. These are commercial courts under admiralty law. They will never, ever, ever acquiesce to any kind of common law jurisdiction. They literally cannot. They cannot. It is unlawful for them to be under common law, being an Article I court under United States military jurisdiction, being created by Congress. They cannot be under common law. That's erroneous. Never think that's the case. What you do, you always challenge jurisdiction. Like we were talking about with Chile de Castro again, that he wanted to actually argue his case and then call and talk shit to the cop in the courtroom and all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's like, dude, the only things you should have been saying were questions, and they should have been about your jurisdiction. That's it. Because as soon as you start arguing, you consent to their jurisdiction, because that's what court is a dispute. And the judge is your jury. You're an idiot, bro. I hope you enjoy sit your ass down for 6 months. All right. So right here, though, the municipality then hires the police officers to enforce all of these legal codes. These are called code enforcement officers. Now, police officers are so important to this gambit, the securities farming that's going on, because they are the ones who enforce the compliance to the trust indenture. They enforce your compliance into the licensing and revenue codes. They are integral to the structure of this thing, right? That's what their job is. They are code enforcement officers, but more specifically, they're compliance enforcement officers. And they are the ones who make sure those securities are good. Based on how well they do their job, that the higher the bond rating of that courthouse, the more investors that come to buy paper from that courthouse, and the more money that courthouse makes. If there's a town called Novi, my dad knows about it, Novi up here in Michigan. Novi will come all the way to the other side of the state to pick your ass up for an unpaid ticket. Because that's
you want to know the irony? You want to know the irony in all that too?
What?
The reason that Novi is even called Novi is because it was stop number 6 on the Underground Railroad. NO, abbreviation for number, VI.
Yeah, that is
the Roman numeral of 6.
Now it's owned by Arabs, and they have, when you call the courthouse, it says we have a AAA bond rating. They're not talking to you.
Right.
We're talking to the investors. Like, yeah, you buy paper from us and that paper is going to be good. Our cops enforce the shit out of some compliance. Okay, they will comply, right? Your paper will be good. The obligations of that contract will be met every time. And that's where cops come in. That's what cops are, the pirates that create the attachment. And they're the ones who enforce the compliance to the attachments created, to the contracts created. So let's see here. It says these officers work for the municipal corporation. Now, that's what's funny is these corporations are private corporations. They are owned by corporations. They have investors, right? Even Oakland County has a corporate board. Oakland County, Michigan, all counties have a corporate board of directors. I went down to file my declaration of trust, and he went back and he took it with the county clerk, and the clerk went back there and he read it, and he was back there for about 5-10 minutes, and he came out and he was like, and I'm telling you, this is exactly what happened. He said, this is exactly the type of paperwork we would need. He says, the only thing it's missing is a parcel of land. And I said, a parcel of land? I said, well, I'm the land. And he said, yeah, but you need an actual deed, like a certificate, a parcel of land. And I said, well, why don't I just use my birth certificate? And he goes, he's like, yeah, you can't use that. He's like, besides, you don't want that on public record. But our corporate advisors, or what do you say, like our corporate directors or our corporate advisors won't allow us to accept that. And that's what he said. Like, he knew 100% exactly what I was talking about. And he said, this is exactly what we would require, but you have to be a landowner is basically what he's saying. But the whole gambit, and he even revealed the fact that he knows that we are the land. We are the land, right? So last thing I'm going to show real quick is this. We'll go to the free dictionary again, and we'll go, whoops, what the hell happened here? Oh, okay. It's like, yeah, so we'll go here and we go. So farm land, right? Where's the search bar at on this son of a bitch? There it is. So we'll go farm. This is a really cool resource, guys, by the way. It's just called the free dictionary. You can go to legal like that. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right. It's not available in the legal dictionary. So farm is a tract of land, obviously, but here we go down to number 5, it says obsolete. It says the system of leasing out the rights of collecting and retaining taxes in a certain district, a district so leased, right? To turn over, right here, to turn over to another in return for the payment of a fixed sum. This is why I called tonight's episode Securities Farming, because that's what it is. All right, government politics, a district of which one or more taxes are leased, right? A fixed sum paid by an individual or group for the right of collecting and retaining taxes rents, etc. Right? So this is what a farm actually is. So when we look at the Federal Farm Loan Act of 1916, this is what they're talking about. They're giving out loans for subscriptions to joint stock companies. And what they're talking about is we are the farmland that they're buying up, that they're using as collateral. And now, so that's farm. We'll look up land. And it's actually two words. That's what I thought was interesting in the Federal Farm Loan Act. Is the word or the term farmland is actually two separate words. Instead of just like farmland is one word, it's farmland. So right here is the definition of land: a nation or a country, the people of a nation, district, or region, right? And this is how these small hat legalese loving lawyers, that's how they work, man. That's what they do. So anyway, that's securities farming. So the cop creates a well, here we got in rem says, even as an adult, we'll put that up. Show comment. Even as an adult in law, you are a minor until you claim otherwise. Yeah, and actually, because you never take control of your minor account, your minor estate, right? And another way that they consider you a minor, so somebody is a minor if they're mentally incapacitated, right? And because you don't understand the law and you don't understand what has been done to you, and I shit you not, this is literally how they look at you. You are considered mentally incapacitated. 100%. There's let's see. Let's do this real quick. Hold on, I'll show you guys in just a second once I pull it up. So we got this. Share screen. A torn, as in an attorney, right? In the feudal law, to turn or transfer homage and service from one lord to another. This is the act of feudatories, vassals, or tenants upon the alienation of an estate. That's what the attorney's doing, right? He's representing you because you're mentally incapacitated, and he's transferring your homage or service to the court. Right? He has power of attorney for you. So now, does anybody have any questions or anything they might want to ask? I don't know. Maybe I'll post the link in the chat, see if anybody wants to come up. If you guys are watching the replay, that was
go on back through the chat too. Look, I think there's some questions in there too that were posed, but wait till you get that on there first.
Yeah, parens patriae is the doctrine under which the government rules over its citizenry. And remember, they don't rule over the people; they rule over the corporate fiction, the federal franchise. The United States citizen is a corporation. It's a franchise because the United States itself is a corporation, federal corporation. But here, I think I can do this. We will go to invite, copy, paste, and then I'll pin it.
America was built to be destroyed, says Kundalini King. I think so.
It was built, from my research, it was built as an experiment. They want to enslave us through debt and contract. But in order to do so, they had to give us a fair starting point. That's why I think they call it the Great Experiment.
That's absolutely. I believe that too. Yeah.
Something about James Madison's quote. When he was asked what type of government is it that we've been given, he says a republic if you can keep it. And
I thought that was Franklin.
Was it Franklin?
I think it was. That's I've always heard it was Franklin.
It could have been Franklin. I don't know. But either way, it sounded like a challenge to me.
And what the fuck, that guy? Who is the hell was he? He just started just hanging out, man. You know, and being given positions and all this other shit. He's really kind of a mysterious guy.
He was actually, they found dead bodies under his house. And
his residence in England. I heard about that.
Yeah. And he was known to be a part of a couple pretty dark esoteric organizations. Huh?
Societies.
Yeah. And
societies.
Yeah, so it looks like he could have been a murderer. Emilio says he'll join next week with some question. Let's see here. I'm just looking through the comments to see what you guys have asked. Yeah, so that's interesting. Franklin, well, the whole, where you guys are talking about what the country was created for in the first place, the whole Treaty of Paris was signed by nothing but bar members. So I've done some shows on the bar. I actually found the nexus of where the bar, between the church and the bar. So back in like 1200s or 1100s, I forget specifically, but you guys can look it up. It used to be the Roman, the Catholic clergy that administered law. And then there was a papal bull that was passed that prevented the clergy from administering law anymore. So what they did was they turned it over to the Templars in the Crown District of London. And the Templars turned it over to the Esquire. So when you look at Esquire, when you know that so today the International Bar Association is in the Crown District of London on Fleet Street. All the bar associations in the world are signatories to the International Bar Association. They're a part of it. And it's all located in the Crown District of London in the old Templar building. So here's an interesting thing. We'll go to Webster's Dictionary. We looked at it torn. Let's do this. Templar, and I'll show you guys this real quick. Damn, my computer's slow right now. It's probably because I've got
got a million tabs open.
Probably 1,000, no bullshit. Templar, right? From the Temple, a house near the Thames, which originally belonged to the Knights Templars. The latter took their denomination from apartment of the Palace of Baldwin II. Look at the number one definition for Templar. A student of the law.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the Templars took over, they created the Inns of Court, okay, in England. Whoops. I don't know why. Yep, I stopped sharing. Apparently that stopped. So they created the Inns of Court. So there's 4 Inns of Court in England. There's Gray's Inn, there's the Inner Temple, the Middle Temple, Gray's Inn, and Lincoln's Inn. Okay, and according to now, to find information on these inns is very difficult because they're unincorporated. They're a private secret society, literally. And all through the Middle Ages, in order to be a member of the Bar Association, you had to be called to the bar. You had to be invited, and then you could become a barrister, a bar member, right?
Or a barrister.
Right, barrister.
Yeah.
And each of these inns control a different section of the world today, right? So they say that the Middle Temple is the one that controls America, Canada, United States, so on and so forth. And so anyways, Esquire, so you've seen that a Templar is a student of the law. Well, Esquire is a shield bearer, right? It's above a gentleman and below a knight. And all of these esquires are essentially captains of they're pirate captains. So their bar card is a letter of marque and reprisal. I'm not sure how to say that. Marque, M-A-R-Q-U-E, marque. Yeah, marque and reprisal, which a letter of marque and reprisal is permission from one sovereign to another, to a privateer, allowing him to pillage and plunder enemy vessels. So all these bar cards are the letters of marque and reprisal coming from.
Well, even a marquee, if you think about it, it's an advertisement. Okay, like what that's what they call that big sign out in front of a theater. It's the marquee. It's announcing what's inside of the movie or inside of the theater, what's going to be showing, what their schedule agenda is.
Right, exactly. And so these bar members basically they're like ships, like pirate ships, and they set up their little ship in a courthouse, which is also a bank, right? And then they hire a fucking corporate police department to go out and pillage and raid for them, and then bring them back plunder, right? Basically, these cops are charged with going out, creating an attachment to your trust estate. He gets your driver's license number, and it's connected to your social security investment account. And he uses that to generate a piece of commercial paper. And while he uses that to generate or create an attachment, then the court generates commercial paper. And now you've been summoned to appear because you're dead, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And you show up there. Now, like the one guy said in the video that we watched, he said, "I'm here by special appearance." He said he's
right.
here. Yeah, he said that because he's not dead. He says, "I'm here by special appearance." Basically, I'm appearing in the realm of the dead to settle this matter with you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's very important. And he was very careful to make a separation between his living, and I hate the word person. We get tricked into using the word person all the time, but the definition of the word person was changed in the 1800s to include incorporations. And so in the Constitution, you have "we, the people of the United States, do ordain," blah, 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 right? Well, in the 14th Amendment, you have all persons. So you don't have people anymore. You have persons. And it was to create that corporation, or to allow corporations to enjoy the rights and privileges of being a citizen, of being a...
Well, it's even like how cops say, "Do you have any narcotics on your person?"
Right.
Person? What the fuck are you talking about? Get out of here.
Right, on your person, right, as in like on your vessel, on your entity. Right. You know what I mean? And they're trained to speak that way. Of course, most of them are too stupid to even know what they're saying.
No, you just got taught that shit in some class.
Right. Right. And now I'm not blanket hating cops. I've got family that's cops. I've got friends that are cops, and they know my position, and we have discussions on this stuff, frequently, but most of the time it's just kind of the elephant in the room between us. I don't necessarily despise all cops or anything like that. I think that, what they do is piracy, and I tell them that you're a pirate, bro. Like there's no other way to put it. You are a pirate unless you are protecting somebody or you are actually arresting somebody who has harmed someone else, which is fine. That's what we had the entire time under common law. You hurt somebody, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get arrested, and then you're going to be tried by a jury, and you're going to, so if there's a victim, then whatever. But I don't blanket hate cops, but cops, even if they're good cops, they got those golden handcuffs.
Yep.
And it's, they don't want to speak up because they'll lose their job. They have to provide for their family. Right. And one bad apple spoils the bunch. So the good cops not telling on the bad cops kind of makes them a bad cop by association in general. And that's just the situation.
Well, it's gotten to the point now what they're being forced to do has made it so that people that do have a conscience, people that are decent men and women, have walked away from the badge, and they have specifically hired just nothing but thuggish order followers that want to act first, ask questions later. Basically just a force is what they've created, you understand? And this is all by design. There was a memo that went out to the HR of all law enforcement after 9/11. And once they put in Homeland Security, in fact, it came from Homeland Security, to have them focus not so much on the higher IQ people, but on the mid-range IQ people that were more apt to just follow orders without question. So that's what we.
There was a guy in, I think, 2000 that actually got denied a position in law enforcement because he scored too high on his aptitude test.
And it is not even in the top 10 most dangerous jobs.
No, but
this officer safety. Oh, fuck officer safety. You cowardice piece of shit. Get the fuck out of that job.
Right. You know, well, if you weren't such a piece of shit to people, you wouldn't have to worry about your safety so much.
You know what? I blow that shit right by those assholes at courthouses every time I've had to go through all that metal detector. I say, what the fuck are you people so afraid of? That's what I ask them. I said, what are you so afraid of? I said, I know exactly what you're afraid of because you know you're fucking people. Because if you wasn't, you wouldn't be afraid of people coming back and getting reprisal on you. That's what you're afraid of.
Right, exactly. No, that is, and you know, the whole thing is they don't hang out with normal people either. Like my buddies who are cops, they generally, you know, I see them every once in a while.
They hang out with other cops.
They have to hang out with other cops. It's actually the culture that's fostered in the police.
You can't have any fun around the motherfuckers because there's a law about every goddamn thing.
Well, it's not even just that. They foster that culture of cops only hanging with cops. So they create a tight-knit group that's separated from the people.
The blue line cult.
Right. So Mike Smith says, I have a really hard time not despising cops. You can't be a good or decent man or woman and do what cops do. I have a couple of family members who are cops. I have a very low opinion of them also.
Well, I say it's just like a lot of these things, you know, you have to put your brain and your morals on a shelf for a paycheck. And I don't know how somebody can just turn on and off their morals. You either have them or you don't.
Well, see, the cops literally are, on top of being pirates for the Bar Association, they are the military, the occupying force. Okay, so I tell people all the time, they're like, okay, well, what do we do about it now that we know, you know, we've been occupied by a hostile foreign corporation called the United States? It's actually an English corporation. Well, you learn how to assert your knowledge and challenge jurisdiction is about the best option, but there is no silver bullet because we are under hostile occupation from a foreign corporation. They have militarily occupied the states. There is no way around it. You can go get a passport. You can do all that crazy shit, right? That people swear up and down works. And guess what? You'll end up like poor Chase Allen. That's what'll happen. For those of you who don't know. You know,
Orlando Castile or any of them guys, man. The guy that got greased in the hallway of the La Quinta Hotel in Arizona. Nothing happened to the fucking cops. Well, it's officer safety.
Right. You got to just make stupid people famous that no cops in heaven. But, you know, and here's the thing, definitely assert, like if I deal with cops, I'll tell them straight up. If they pull me over, I'll be like, good afternoon, road pirate. How will you be pillaging my estate today? You know what I mean? Create an attachment to my trust to say, I know the system here. You create a state of peril, right? And then you're going to come salvage my vessel is what you're attempting to do. And it's never just, the whole point of any interaction with the public for these people is to escalate it into an arrest. That's the goal. You know, where are you heading tonight?
That way.
What'd you pull me over for? Yeah, I'm not even. What did you pull me over for? Well, you failed to yield. Okay, you gonna write me a ticket for failure to yield, or are you gonna fucking keep asking me questions, dude? Why are you so hostile? Because you're fucking my day up, man.
All right. Who are you? Just walk up, start fucking hassling random strangers for what?
Right. The shit you say is funny. That was funny. He's like, I seen you over there minding your own business, and I thought you could use some government.
Yeah, I thought you could use some government here.
Why don't you let me come over and give you some government? Huh? Yeah. That's what you're missing in your day is a little bit of government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get as much of that shit in you as you can there. That's what you're after. Which way you going? Well, I was back there, so I'm going this way. Yeah.
Jerry, son of Mick, how many securities can they create? I'm actually glad you asked me that because I forgot to cover it. Limitless.
Wow.
Limitless amounts of security off the original security. So the original security is your birth certificate. All right, that represents the mortgage and the ownership certificate of your vessel, and underwritten by your social security account, or I assume you have something similar in Ireland because they all are set up similarly because we were the standardization model for the slavery. They can literally generate as many securities as they want off of that security using you as surety, and they can sell those securities, a lot of them, as many times as they want. After a person dies, the securities are circulated still for many years after the person's death. And that's just, yeah, it's unbelievable. Read the Securities and Exchange Act. It's a tough read. It's mind numbing, but they basically lay it all out in there that you can generate as many securities as you want off the initial security, as long as you get the agreement. All they need is your consent and the guarantee of compliance. So the difference between the court as a bank and an actual bank is the court has the police to ensure compliance. So the bank doesn't have anybody to come break your legs if you don't pay them back, but the court does, right? And that's why their securities are always A1 gold. And as long as the court can get your consent, they can generate as many securities off of those contracts as they want. That's as many times, and it's all off your original mortgage. So it's quite a racket, man. I mean, honestly, when you think about the system that's been set up, there's no way a human conceived of it.
I know, that's what I look at too. I'm like, this is way too convoluted.
There's
way too complex.
No, there's just no way. There's no way a human conceived of it, you know. And the thing is law. They call the legal words of art. And you were talking about the power of words earlier. And the power of words is something it's probably the most important subject of investigation in existence, and it's one that's most easily taken for granted and overlooked. And these words have power, and they have power over you, especially when you agree to them. You know, these contracts literally have esoteric power. They do. And that's why these lawyers, so it's interesting. The prosecutors, when we went to a hearing on a traffic ticket a while back in Waterford, and the prosecutor hated my guts because they tried to default judgment me on it, basically get a default judgment. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You know what I mean? And I can't remember how I did it, but I got him to actually reverse it. And so I went to the courthouse, and the prosecutor was just a vile, demonic wench, dude.
They always are.
Even so much that my wife was like, what's wrong with that woman? She like hates you and she doesn't even know you. She looks evil, dude. Like, and I tried to explain to her, I'm like, these prosecutors are possessed. Yeah. Now, I might sound crazy for saying that, but literally the word shaitan or Satan, right, actually means prosecutor, accuser.
Prosecuting attorney.
It's a prosecutor, yeah, right? And the Greek word for guardian angel is the same word for like defense attorney, or however that works out. They're related, etymologically related. And that's what's going on here. The judge is playing God. The devil is accusing you. And then you have your guardian angel. What supposed to have your guardian angel.
Yeah. Most times they're some overpaid asshat that doesn't know shit.
And you're actually in a temple. For all my Christian fans, this is the money changer situation. The money changers in the temple turning the Father's house into a den of thieves. That's these people, these Babylonian, Phoenician money changers. That's who they are. What's going on in there is they're converting foreign currency into domestic currency. well, it's all foreign currency, but they're converting foreign currencies. They're taking their commercial paper and converting it into Federal Reserve notes, which is also commercial paper. It's all contracts. And yes, so your social security number is your slave mark. If anything actually fit the mark of the beast, the social security number does best, because you need it to buy, sell, work. You need it to do everything. Social security number is the primary nexus with the federal government. That's your employee ID number. It's your tax ID number. That's the account they want to get after to use it as security, right? Nailed it, Zealot. Yeah. Oh, that's, yeah. Okay. I didn't see you said that in Rem, but yes, they are temples of Justia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Randy, I'll be right back.
Justitia, right? The Phoenicians were pirates, actually, and that's where we get the word phonics from as well, Phoenician. These words of, so I don't know how many of you are Jordan Maxwell fans. He gets a little out there on some of his stuff, but he's very right with a lot of the things that he said. So like about the origin of words, like contract, for instance. Contract, the word con means to steer a ship, and a tract is a path. So when you sign a contract, you're literally changing your ship's path. Basically, they're steering your ship's path, right? Justinian deception. So that's another interesting thing with the capital letters, right? So I've read the document, or the, what would you call it, essay, the Justinian deception, and that's interesting. So when they write your name in all capital letters, it's a diminization of, I'm pretty sure it's called capitis diminutio. I always have trouble saying that word, capitis diminutio, and it's a diminishment of status, basically. In the all capital letters, the word capital comes from kaput, which means skull, and also is used as a term, or as a euphemism for death, like kaput. He's kaput. Kaput is skull, right? So that's pretty interesting connection there. Yeah, Jordan unfortunately passed away, and I'm not sure, he was old, so it's tough to say if they finally took him out. I'd imagine if they wanted to take him out, they would have a long time ago. But yeah, so, and the whole esoteric death connection with this thing is pretty crazy. I mean, you got the judge wearing the black robes, right? So when the colonies were founded, Egyptian mysticism played a heavy role in the founding of this country. There was, so the story of Osiris, right? I'm going to tell you guys something cool. The story of Osiris, his brother Set, was jealous of him, kidnapped him, killed him. Osiris is the sun god, and then he becomes god of the dead. This is how he becomes god of the dead. His brother Set, which is where we get the term sunset, right, kidnaps him, cuts his body up into 14 pieces. Isis, his wife, is distraught, goes looking for him, can only find 13 of them. The missing 14th piece was his phallus. So she puts the pieces together and then fashions a new phallus for him. And out of that, the sun god Horus was born, who took his father's place. And then Osiris went to go rule over the dead. So the reason I bring that up, when there was 13 colonies when this country was founded. And then the capital makes the 14th, right, where there's an obelisk today to represent that 14th piece. That 14th piece, the obelisk, the phallus, represents authority. Right? Now,
You will obey my penis.
so when Osiris goes to govern the dead, right, he now becomes god of the dead. In Egyptian mythology, or whatever I don't even know if you call it mythology. A lot of this stuff turns out to be true, even no matter how crazy it seems. It's like reality is way, way stranger than fiction. But in Egyptian mythology, when you die, right? Yeah, I'm getting to the judge's black robes. When you die, you go to the Hall of Truth. Your goal is to get to the Field of Reeds, which is exactly like heaven on earth. It's you get everything you had in life, except for there's no sickness or despair, death, nothing like that. It's heaven. But in order to get there, you have to pass through the Hall of Truth. In the Hall of Truth sits Osiris, and he's the judge with 42 other judges. And so they take your soul's heart out and they place it in a scale. And they place on the other side of that scale the feather of truth. And then Osiris and the 42 other judges sit there and listen to your case while your heart's being weighed against the feather of truth. And then depending on, whether or not your heart's heavier than the feather, or if it's lighter than the feather, if it's heavier, you cease to exist. You're annihilated. There is no hell in Egyptian mythology. But if it's lighter, then you go to the Field of Reeds. Now, I bring all that up because that's the exact symbolism behind our court system, and even the IRS. Look at this. The IRS uses this. IRS logo. So we'll pop one of these up. Let's use this one here. Okay, let me know if you guys can see this. Sure. Let's see if it pops up. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So ordinarily you'd think you see an eagle holding scales in its mouth with a feather. But in reality, you have the Grim Reaper, which is Saturn or Osiris, holding a pair of scales and weighing against the feather of truth. Right? Now, it gets even deeper, like I said, the mortgage of something. So if we go back, well, I guess share again one more time. So we'll go to the free dictionary and we put in mortgage. And then let's see, I think it was legal, right? Okay. So we read here, it says, the party who borrows the money and gives the mortgage, the debtor, is the mortgager. The party who pays the money and receives the mortgage, the lender, is the mortgagee. Under early English and U.S. law, the mortgage was treated as a complete transfer of title from borrower to lender. The lender was entitled not only to payments of interest on the debt, but also to the rents and profits of the real estate. This meant, as far as the borrower was concerned, the real estate was of no value, that is, dead, until the debt was paid in full. Hence the Norman English name, mortgage, dead pledge, right? So then we look over here at this. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it's backed by the credit of the nation. It represents a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people in the nation, which can only be done if your property rights are mortgaged. As far as the borrower was concerned, the real estate was of no value, that is, dead, until the debt's paid in full. What does that mean if you're the property? You're dead, right? And then we look at, we'll go to Bouvier's 1856, letter D, it's right there. Perfect. So this is actually the process of doing this is called, if I can get there, it's called damnification. Damnification. That which causes loss or damage to a society or to one who has indemnified another. For example, when a society has entered into an obligation to pay the debt of the principal, like the United States citizen is in an obligation to pay the debt of the United States, and the principal has become bound in a bond to indemnify the surety. The latter has suffered damnification the moment he becomes liable to be sued for the debt of the principal, which is what's happening when you go to court. Or because all these courts are private banks, they're administering the bankruptcy, and all of these traffic laws and revenue codes are considered beneficial use of the property for the lender. So it's damnification. So you're dead, you've been damnified. And now the way this all goes into like esoteric biblical stuff, Black's law, dictionary online. Yeah, we'll go there. We're going to look up hell. Hell actually has a legal definition. At least it did. Where the hell is it at? I've shown it before. It's a place where the king's debtors are held.
I'm going to have to dip out here. It's getting late for me tonight here on Saturday on here. I got to do some other shit here before I go out. So
I'm getting ready to wind down. Yeah, I'm getting ready to wind this thing down anyway. So thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you on here.
Right on, man. We'll see you next time. I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, later.
All right.
So here it is, guys. It's hell. Black's Law Dictionary, thedictionary.org. The name formerly given to the place under the exchequer chamber where the king's debtors were confined is hell. So you're dead, damned, and in hell. And then the IRS, the judge is Osiris governing the dead, judging the dead. He wears a Saturnian black robe. He's got the phallic symbol in the form of the gavel. And he smacks to show his authority. And the prosecutor is the devil. The defense attorney is unfortunately also the devil nowadays, but it's supposed to be the counselor that's on the defense is supposed to be a guardian angel type deal. So anyway, I'm getting ready to wind this thing down. Does anybody have any questions or anything? I know the stuff that I was getting into is kind of confusing. Just everything is debt securities in commerce. All currency is debt. All we're doing is trading debt back and forth. Nobody has any money. Article 1, Section 10 says that only gold and silver are lawful currency, or not currency, money. Currency and money are not the same thing. Currency is a medium of exchange. And money is money. Money has a specific definition. Money is tangibly valuable. Money is gold, silver, precious stones, things that have inherent value that are tangibly worth something. The currency is just a medium of exchange. So our currency is debt. We trade debt back and forth, and it's basically a big game of hot potato. So when you have a bunch of Federal Reserve notes, the United States has many obligations to pay you, right? But you can't call in those obligations right now to be paid in actual money. All you can do is use those promises as currency and exchange them for goods and services. And so when you think about it like that, when the utility company generates a bill, right? So this is the way it's supposed to be done. And this is really going to confuse you guys, but I'm going to try to explain it the best I can before I get off here. The people as a body politic are the creditors, okay? And the bank is also a creditor, and only the United States and its citizenry are debtors, but the people of the several states and the people whose property rights have been unlawfully mortgaged are actually creditors. Okay? So what that means is that you were free. The United States Congress had no jurisdiction over you because you're not a United States citizen. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. The United States didn't have citizenry of its own until the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment could only claim those that agreed to contract with the United States through some sort of contractual nexus. Like naturalization papers is the nexus before Social Security and all that stuff was invented. So we have, and I showed it on my show the other night. If I find it real quick, it's McDonald v. State. I'll open that up real quick and I'll show you guys real fast this. So share screen. All right, let's look at this real quick. McDonald v. State. This guy was found guilty of murder. He appealed it because one of the jurors, he said, was an alien, which meant he couldn't serve as a juror. But the fact was that juror was actually a state citizen. He was just not a federal citizen. He did come from another country, but he filed his naturalization papers with the state, which should be of note to anybody watching because you can't do that anymore. You can't file your naturalization papers with the state because the states have completely ceded their sovereignties and just become federal territories and administrative departments of the executive branch of federal government. But right here, let me see if I can find, it says right here, though he was not a citizen of the United States, he was a citizen and voter of the state under Section 2 of Article 2 of our state constitution, which is Indiana. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. And these are the other cases that back that up. Thomason v. State, Corey v. Carter, all that stuff, right? Let me see if I can find where he says, so somewhere in here, I don't want to spend a bunch of time looking for it, but it says that he filed his naturalization papers with the state, became a state citizen, but neglected to do that with the federal government. He didn't have to, right? They're two separate governments, two separate countries, the state and the District of Columbia, and they have citizenry of their own. You can be one of them without being both of them. That's how it's always been. That's how it's supposed to be. In fact, the United States didn't even have its own citizenry. So until the 14th Amendment. So the United States corporation is the debtor. The people of the several states are the creditor. Okay. And even more so since the United States tried to claim them. So the reason, like how I showed earlier in the show, that the states have been given through the Buck Act jurisdiction over the federal citizens, and now they've completely removed your state citizenship altogether. Now you're just a resident of the state. And this is why, because if you were one of the people of the state citizen, then the mortgage of your property rights places you in a creditor position and entitles you to interest and dividends on your investment. And that interest and dividends aren't being paid out. They're just being paid out to the states because you're considered dead. You haven't claimed your estate. You're not alive. You're disappeared. You're lost at sea, whatever you want to call it. And that actually I went over on this show is under the Uniform Disposition of Unclaimed Property Act. That's what that's called in each of the states, where they discuss how to divvy up your interest and dividends. But how this should actually go, what I was getting to is you being a creditor, any liabilities, any injury to you as a result of the mortgage of your property, right? Like let's say licensing infractions and all of these things that are liens on your property rights that would never happen to a living state citizen, one of we the people. you're supposed to be able to send those. So debt is currency. You get this ticket. You're supposed to be able to take that ticket and treat it just like a check. And since you're one of we the people, the creditors, since we loaned our property rights to be used as collateral, not willingly, but since we're free, sovereign living people, we're still creditors since it was done. Since we loaned our property rights, you're supposed to be able to take that piece of commercial paper, that bill, and endorse it and send it to the treasury to be discharged in gold. And that's how it's actually supposed to work. That's actually what the gold clause is. But will they honor that? Not until enough of us actually did it. And it's hard enough for the average person to even understand this stuff to begin with. So I would like to think that my audience are above average intelligence. So we're talking trying to get the average person on board with this is not going to be an easy task. Is it possible? Yes, but I don't know. Right? So anyway, guys, I greatly appreciate you showing up tonight and joining me for this presentation. Sorry if it was a bit wordy and mind-numbing. Most of the stuff when it comes to the law just generally is. But here is the most important takeaway. So everybody always asks me for a solution. I'm probably one of the very few people in this movement, in this community, that'll be honest with you and tell you that there is no silver bullet, man. But the one thing that you can do, and the one thing that has been shown to work, and I showed it working earlier tonight in this episode where somebody did it in court, caught it on video, challenge jurisdiction. There are only 2 criminal jurisdictions the Constitution has created, okay? The Constitution being the supreme law. You have Article 3, Section 2, courts of criminal jurisdiction under common law. Well, actually, the Article 3, Section 2 court is Supreme Court, but the justice of the peace and all that is under common law, right? And the Constitution provides for common law courts. Or there is an Article 1, Section 8 military maritime tribunal. And that's what these courts are operating under. So if you can get them to admit that they are charging you criminally, but then ask them which jurisdiction that you're under, and what is the nature and cause of the crime committed, where is your accuser, right? You get them to admit this military maritime jurisdiction, or realize that in order to answer your questions, they're going to have to admit this. That's your best shot. And a lot of times they'd rather just not deal with you, because then they have to admit what they're doing, right? So any kind of licensing or traffic violation is prosecuting a lien on your property rights. Okay. Oh, you didn't register your car. So what you're doing is you're claiming injury because I didn't convey the right of my property to be used by the state as collateral. How does that make you a victim? Right? In order for this, are we in Article 1, Section 8 court right now, which is created by Congress and is a commercial court or a maritime court? Or are we under a de jure court of common law, right? And you have the right to know that. They have to tell you. And jurisdiction is pretty much the only thing that you can do, in my opinion, to stay out of their courthouse. You know what I mean? Stay out of their bank is what it is. Stay out of their trap. So, but I greatly appreciate you guys for joining me tonight. I hope I was able to teach you guys something you did not know. And next time I'll probably do a hold on. He said, John Woodmansey, good luck with what, Ryan? Good luck with what? Challenging jurisdiction? It's easy, dude. You just have to know how to explain it. Doesn't mean they're always going to honor it. Sometimes they do whatever they want. But when you ask them questions that they cannot answer, it works more often than it doesn't. There is no silver bullet. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight. And it definitely doesn't mean that if you understand this stuff and understand how you're under military territorial jurisdiction of a foreign corporation, and it's very easy to prove once you have the information and the resources that I've given you guys, like with the March 9th, 1933, the definition of 14th Amendment in Black's Law, the cases that I've shown you guys where they show the difference between a United States citizen, state citizen, the fact that United States citizenship isn't a conscionable contract, the fact that the only way the United States could have a court within the state and be flying that American flag is under Article 1, Section 8. That's the only way they could be having a court, right? No, Jeebus, there is no gold. There is no gold in Fort Knox. No, hell no. The Rothschilds got that stuff, man. So the Treasury is supposed to be able to settle debts in gold, but they don't have to, like internationally. So the way this went down, I'll explain this real quick. The congressional record I show that says they mortgage our property rights and now they don't have to use gold to settle debts domestically. They still had to settle debts in gold internationally. They had to honor the Federal Reserve note internationally with gold, right? And slowly over time, they were able to take us off the gold standard with the Bretton Woods Agreement by making a treaty with OPEC that the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, that they would only sell their oil for the American dollar. So that meant that any other nation that wanted to buy oil from OPEC had to convert their currency to our currency in order to purchase oil. And that allowed them to take us off the gold standard, to not have to settle our debts in gold, and essentially tied our dollar to black gold. Well, not dollar, tied the Federal Reserve note to black gold. And I would say because of that, and because they had no need to hang on to the gold anymore, the bankers who already own the gold, because you got to remember the United States declared bankruptcy March 9th, 1933 with the Emergency Banking Relief Act and House Joint Resolution 192. That gold already belonged to the bankers. So I would say it's not in Fort Knox at all. I would say that shit's gone. He says, yeah. Well, anyway, guys, let me get off here because I'm like falling asleep myself. It's late, and I appreciate you guys for hanging out and watching the stream. And maybe next time some of you guys will come up here. I pinned a link this time, but not everybody likes to go on air. I get that, but maybe next time we'll have an open discussion or something. I won't bore everybody to death with all this legal jargon bullshit that makes your eyes cross. But you guys have an awesome night, man. Thank you guys.